The opposite. What would happen if your structure, your framework, everything you did was opposite of conventional wisdom in building a successful business coaching practice? That's our discussion today on the Business Coaching Success Podcast. Let's jump in. BJ O'Neill here with the Business Coaching Success Podcast. So glad you're here, where I share with you strategies, tools, and tips to be able to grow your business coaching practice to six figures and beyond as a Christian business coach. Let's jump in. Welcome. Glad you're here. We are discussing what it's like, or what would it be like, to stand out in a completely unique and different way in building our business coaching practice. I'm going to cover several different things. We're going to focus today on this idea of the word opposite related to building relationships. I'm going to explain. Now, let's kind of unpack some things. I call it the onion approach. We peel things back. We learn together. All about, in our community of Business Coach Mastery, we're Christ followers, we're believers, and so we're building business coaching practices on faith-based principles. Well, one of the challenges that I see all the time is that, and it's not done intentional. It's just not thought about. We kind of move the faith principles off a little bit, or we don't embrace them well, and therefore we operate the business based upon fear. This is a mistake. This is a challenge. Why would we want to do that? We have an entire opportunity to build legitimate relationships. We have an opportunity to feed our families, to get freedom, to be able to not hit the 9-to-5 grind in the same way, or at least, helping others build their dreams, but to build our own and to build legacy. And we can do that by embracing things totally different, all based upon hope. We cannot build businesses in a long-lasting and sustainable business based upon fear. This is what fear looks like. If we're embracing any kind of lead generation strategy, for instance, doesn't matter which one it is, but we're constantly questioning it. We don't even believe it. We don't believe in ourselves. We don't put the work effort in that we know we probably could and should. And that's kind of what everybody else does. So when we look at the word opposite from a faith principle, we say, well, one, we have a hope. Paul talks about in Ephesians, he's encouraging and he's praying for believers. That says, I'm praying that your eyes of your heart are going to be enlightened, that we have hope and faith in our risen Savior. Well, it doesn't matter what you're going through. It doesn't matter if it's work, if it's family crisis, if it's just building things strategically. We can place hope in this idea that God cares for us. If He cares rather for the number of hairs on your head, then He cares about how you build your business. He cares about the relationships that you're building. So we have to invite Him into the process. And here's the really cool thing about hope. And by the way, we're not talking about hope like you're just going to hope it works out. No, the hope is that God's going to guide me. He's going to help put me in front of the right people. His timing's better than mine. Here's what's really cool. I've watched it in my own life, and I've watched it in numbers of coaches throughout the years, that how we get to the end goal that we have for ourselves, for our business, for our family, often looks very different than what we thought it was going to look like. Why? That's the hope and the guidance of Jesus in the process. So I want to invite you to think about that strategically from a bedrock perspective. Go read that verse. I think it's 1:18 and 19. I think Ephesians 1:8, somewhere around there, where we have to see it. Our heart has to be open to the hope for God to guide us. And I think God's waiting on that, okay? So that's just kind of when we talk about, just building faith principles into the process, at least that's the way I see it. And I'll let you potentially pray about how you see it as well. So we're going to talk about lead gen for a moment. When we talk about lead gen, this is about building relationships. One of the mistakes that coaches make, and I did it for many years, is that we have an off and on approach to building relationships. So remember, we're adopting the word opposite. One of the opposite ways that we want to embrace it is that a very normal pattern is for a lot of coaches to have a start-stop mentality, have a foot on the gas, it's off the gas, it's on the gas, all based upon kind of what's going on. Well, you can't do that. The opposite way, rather, is to be consistent. And while your consistencies may have softer times than others, you've got to stay in front of building new relationships because look, life changes. I remember back in the day, I had a couple of seasons where everything was going great. Clients were doing well, whatever. And a couple of years really. And I really didn't spend a lot of time in building new relationships. And all of a sudden, I started to lose a couple of clients, 2 or 3 clients at the same time, totally unrelated. It's just, after a couple of years, one of the businesses had a new baby, so their life changed. They kind of took a step back from business growth for 6 to 8 months or so. Another one had a death in the family; a parent had passed away. So it was life impacts that impacted their cycle of growth at that time, and it just happened to happen at the same time. Well, because I had not been heavily involved in a lot of relationship building, I went through multiples of months of having to kind of redo that. So it doesn't matter if you're starting off for the very first time in coaching, or if you're seasoned and you've had 5, 7, 8 clients, but all of a sudden you got knocked down to 3 or 4 just because, again, life cycles. It's important to stay consistent, number one. Okay. Now, I'm going to give you 2 different examples about this word opposite. How do I stand out, be heard, be more familiar, be remembered as the person, as the strategist, as somebody who people want to be around, as somebody who people want to invite into the process, as somebody who is intriguing and interesting. And you may say, well, BJ, I'm not that intriguing and I'm not super creative. Look, we're going to talk about that in just a moment because it's going to be super important that you do, okay? So even if you're not of the creative mindset, what I'm about to share with you, you can adopt and to do starting today, okay? So regardless of the lead gen strategy that you use, you've got to adopt the word opposite. That's step number 1. And we want to pray through this. We want to ask God, say, look, I want to do things different. I want to do things in a way that sounds unconventional, seems unconventional, and it just kind of like stands out and is totally remembered. I'll use an example of networking, okay? And by the way, if you are just starting out or if you've gone through a dry season, networking is still, and it always will be, one of the best ways to build relationships. Everybody wants to jump on TikTok and Instagram or whatever. Those are fine if you have the right kinds of audiences and you have a big enough audience and whatnot. But God created us to connect together. I don't care how advanced AI becomes. Flesh upon flesh, hugging a neck, shaking a hand is a thing. It'll always be a thing. And honestly, I think in today's world, it's more appreciative more than ever. And so those who understand how to take advantage of it and use it as a strategy are going to win. So networking. And then you may live in a big market, small market, I don't care. You can create opportunities of networking in a bunch of different ways. But for today's purpose, I'm going to use 2 different strategies as an example. What does opposite look like inside these strategies? Although you can do it with any depth of strategy that you use. Okay, networking. So let's think about for a moment what people do when it comes to networking. What is the normal thing that they do? I'll give you a few. You could probably think of your own. Most people, I'm not intending to be offensive, but I don't mind stepping on your toes if it helps you advance, sharpen your saw, and get better. Most people are boring. They don't really think about the process because it's work. And they don't want to go beyond let's just don't dare go beyond the average because it takes a little more effort. But this is where we say, I want to do things totally different, stand out in such a way. Hang on. I've had allergies the last week or so. So I'm having to clear my throat. We'll get there. But I want to do things different, stand out. And what would opposite look like? Well, step 1, most people don't even really think about how do I go into this event, this network. I don't care if it's a standard one, if it's a business mixer, it doesn't matter. They don't go in with any type of true thought on asking great questions. They go in there and they talk about themselves. Well, if I were to go in and I'm prepared with great questions that lead to great conversations, that alone is opposite. That alone gives me a leg up. Someone's going to say, man, BJ really just listened and it was in tune to what I was saying. So many people go in, they want to talk about their business because they're in client acquisition mode, and that's wrong. The opposite way is to go in with the intentionality to inspire, add value to everyone. One of the core values of Business Coach Mastery is to inspire and to add value to, keyword, Everyone. What you don't want to do is walk in a networking environment and you're looking for the next client. The next client is a byproduct of all the relationships that you're building. The purpose of networking, period, is to get access to the people that they know, to network with them, to potentially get introduced to maybe their own clients or people that they know that you should know. We don't want to look at those people in the room as the client. Now, they may be, but when we look at it narrowly, we don't end up at adding value to everyone because we only see people as a potential client. We want to add value to all because that's how you grow a long-lasting, sustainable, exciting business coaching practice. So if you want to become discovered, and if you want to become super well known, and you first start out like if you're in a we live just outside of Nashville, Tennessee. I say outside suburbs. I can make a huge splash just right here in my local community first, and then go to the next community, and then go a little bit north to Nashville, and so on. You don't have to be in the biggest market in the world. As a matter of fact, it's a lot easier to stomp in a small puddle and make a big reaction. So to do that, though, we want to be so inspirational. This is where we ask God to really help us, guide us, give us clarity, give us ideas, help us to make a significant impact, okay? So let's say we go to that event. We're asking great questions, but what are some of the other things that people do that are mundane, that are ordinary, that we can do the opposite to become extraordinary? That's how you need to think about this. I'm doing this opposite to become extraordinary and be remembered. Here's an example. What's one of the number one things people do in a networking environment? They pass out boring business cards. I haven't had a normal business card in a decade, and I would encourage you to stop doing them as well. It's okay to have them but you don't need them anymore. What would you do different? Well, an opposite way for today, as of now, this may become standard at some point. You've seen likely .dot cards or one company. There's multiples of companies that use, it's a thick card that is a RFID where you put the card on top of someone's phone and your information is all automatically transferred to their phone. It comes up, they can accept it, they can actually exchange their invitation. Here's why the word opposite applies in that example. It's the optics of the moment. That's it. That's all. It's not about the information. I can just throw you my text and get your phone number. But if I place a card on your phone, they even have a wristband. You can do it with the tap, actually the phone as well. It's just the tap feature on your phone. If I placed a card, though, this is the optic part, and I've got the card branded with my logo, and we're talking about, hey, I'd love to get your info. Hey, throw your phone out here real quick. And I place my card on your phone, and all of a sudden, ring. It's kind of noise it makes. And then all of a sudden, my image appears with all of my contact info, my email address, my text, my social media handles, and so on. They just hit accept, and boom, it goes in their phone. That's just a little bit of we'll call it a surprise and delight kind of moment, where it's like, dude, that's cool. It's optics. That's all it is. It's little things like this right here it's not even about like you being a coach. It's just optics. These are little bitty, I call them breadcrumb moments that help you stand out. All right. There's another example. In our system, in our done-for-you system that we give seasoned Christian professionals, part of that process is that you have your very own book. And it talks about 12 strategies on where you can find significant financial impacts for a business. Well, we encourage our coaches to have those books printed, and it's custom cover and all that. Be ready to give those out. When you give something of substance, you put that into the hand of the right person, you're now able to drive a different conversation that has an opportunity to stand out, has an opportunity to connect back to strategies that they should be using, or it's how you help businesses so that you can learn to get to know other people in their network and build a legitimate relationship that adds value to them. Here's another example of just the opposite. Years ago, and I used this example in our business coach mastery community as just a thought upon the word opposite. Years ago, I remember going to an event and there was a dentist there. Well, everyone's passing out boring business cards, and what is he doing? He's passing out the toothbrushes. It's the ones that had that had the inserts where they were closed, the brush was closed, wasn't gross or anything like that, but it has all his information on it, and he passed them out. Now you could say that's just it's promotional at best, but it was optics because when you left there with 15 business cards and one toothbrush, what are you remembering the most? The dentist. So it's about surprise and delight, standing out. So I don't care if it's in a networking environment or anything else. It's about the word opposite. Next example for conversation. We'll talk about collaborative relationships. In our coaching community, as a part of our process, one of the big 3 lead gen strategies that we do promote, and we do it and knows really well, is building what we call joint ventures. I like to call them collaborative relationships. I believe, again, when we put our hope and faith in the Lord, we're asking Him and praying for Him to bring the right relationships into our lives. One of the ways that we can add value, inspire everyone, is to collaborate with those people that we are getting to know through networking or just in building your network. And these are people that already have business paying clients. They could be CPAs, they could be financial planners, they could be digital marketing companies, they could be business brokers, and so on. But here's the mundane. So we go back to this word opposite. Here's the mundane. The mundane is I'm going to approach this individual to build, in quotations, a collaboration. If you're listening via audio and not video, I'm doing the air quotes, in quotations, mundane. I'm going to go to this person to create an opportunity to work together. But the mistake that most coaches make is they make the relationship way heavy about what I get benefit from versus them, because I want access to all their clients. Wrong way to do it. Think about it for a moment. Let's just say for conversation for today that the collaboration that you're making is with a CPA. Let's say the CPA has 50 business paying clients. They could be doing their taxes. Maybe they do book work for some of them, whatever. Doesn't matter. But they have a relationship with them where their people are transferring money from them to the CPA. If I go to them and I'm like, I'm wanting to get access to their clients, but I make all the upside about me, it's not exciting. But think about this. What if one of those versions, I said, I tell you what, for every client that you send me, what I'm going to do, my normal fee is $2,000 a month for one-on-one coaching. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you the first month of that client, $2,000. If you give me 3, that's $6,000. Or how about we do this? Let's build a rev share opportunity and you give them 50-50. You're like, what? Think about it. You're not having to do any work to get in front of those people. And there's a number, I'll be very clear here. There's a number of ways to set up collaboration. Here's my bigger point. The opposite. Most people are going to go in with the normal mundane plan that just incentivizes the coach and gives a little bit of a percentage back to the CPA in this example. If you went in the opposite way and you gave them as much or at least more in the beginning, you tell me who's going to be more excited to work with you. The person who gets the upside. So here's the deal. If you take this word opposite and you apply it in all the areas of the collaborations and the relationships and the clients that you're working with, your business can explode. But if you stick in the mundane, if you don't pray that God gives you clarity, gives you confidence, it gives you hope in being able to be collaborative and creative, even if you don't feel creative, you can be creative. You can just literally steal what we do, if you will. You can just implement it. It doesn't take a lot of work today. You can use AI to give you the ideas, honestly. But you got to work at becoming, to stand out, to be different, to do things in a different way. When you do that consistently, you are building such a presence to be remembered, and people want to surround themselves with those that they perceive can help them move forward, especially profitability inside a business. There you go. Hope that makes sense to you today. I hope that adds value to you, wherever you are on your coaching journey. If you are new, or if you've been a coach but you just don't have tools, resources, you're tired of creating all the tools and content, you want to be a part of a community that's vibrant, faith-filled, sharpening iron together, you want a full-blown platform with software, tools, resources, the whole 9 yards, go to businesscoachmastery.com. That's businesscoachmastery.com. There's some information that you can get all about our done-for-you business coaching practice. You can determine if it's the right fit to learn more or not. Okay? Until next time, take care.